Welcome to A Student of Leadership, a micro-podcast where leaders are made one habit at a time. Hosted by Rob Adams, a leadership veteran with 30 years of experience, this podcast explores key concepts that define exceptional leadership. Each episode delves into a powerful word or strategy, offering practical insights and real-world stories. Whether you're just starting out or an experienced executive, join Rob as he guides you in learning, growing, and leading with purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Student of Leadership. I'm Rob Adams, and this is episode 69, From Feedback to Feedforward. This week's play is Run the Feedback You've Been Quietly Resisting. Now, I want you to hold that one in mind as we go along today. This week, we're going to be talking about the leadership discipline that almost no one teaches well, and that almost everyone needs to keep getting better at, regardless of how much experience you already have. The discipline of receiving input that contradicts how you see yourself without your ego getting in the way of actually using it. On Monday, the Leadership Table newsletter on Substack opened the week with the fork, the fourth element of the place-setting framework, returning for its second pass. The first pass back in April covered the daily leadership acts that compound. This pass takes the harder question. What do great leaders absorb that average leaders reject? If you've not read it yet, link is in the show notes. And Friday's Breaking Bread on LinkedIn has the play from this week worth running before the weekend. That drops at 6:45 a.m. Link is also in the show notes. And if you missed last week's episode 68 was on the knife at its second pass, looking at what leadership precision looks like when you don't have any positional authority. No influence without a title. In fact, this episode is in your feed and is worth going back for if you're already leading sideways or upward in your organization right now. I want to start today with a story I've not told publicly before, or at least not in this much detail. Not that long ago, I went through the Goldsmith Stakeholder-Centered Coaching Certification. And for those of you who don't know the program, Goldsmith is one of the most respected leadership development thinkers in the world. He's famous for working with senior executives at the top of the largest companies in the world, and for a particular methodology that focuses less on traditional feedback, but more on what he calls feed-forward. Now, that shift is small in language, but enormous in practice. Feedback is past-focused. What did this person do that was a problem? What could they have done better? Feed-forward is future-focused. What suggestions can you offer for how this person could be more effective going forward in the specific behavior they're trying to develop? Goldsmith's methodology is simple in design. You identify a small group of stakeholders and those people who actually see your leadership in action on a regular basis. These are the people you have impact on every single day. You commit publicly to a behavioral change, just one. Then monthly, you ask each of them for very specific suggestions on what you could do differently to improve in that area. Now, this is the part most people miss, is just saying thank you. When the leader gets that feed forward or feedback, they shouldn't defend. There's no explanation. You don't contextualize. You receive, you try, and you report back to them next month with what you actually did and what came of it. Now, I had been leading for over 20 years when I started this process, actually close to 30. I had a team of leaders working for me who consistently performed well. I had been promoted multiple times. I genuinely thought I was good at receiving feedback. Well, the reality is I was not. The first month I tried this, I asked the question, and I caught myself defending almost before the person even had time to finish their sentence. I was trying to get it out, and they hadn't even completed what they were trying to share with me. Now, not visibly, this was internally. I'm sure body language was reflecting it. I would hear the suggestion, and immediately, automatically, my mind would frame all the reasons it was not quite right, did not understand the full context, missed something important, and by the time I responded out loud, I had constructed a perfectly polite acknowledgement that was beneath the politeness. It was really an essential refusal. The person walked away from that conversation, and I went back to doing what I had been doing. And guess what? Nothing changed. I had performed receptiveness, but I had not actually received anything. Goldsmith's data on this pattern is extensive, and I mean extensive, tens of thousands of captured information. And here's what he documented across decades, that the single biggest predictor of whether a leader actually changes a behavior is not their commitment, their goals, or their stated intent. It is really their ability to receive a suggestion without defending against it. That was the moment my own actual development as a leader started, not the moment I got certified. The moment I realized that for over 2, almost 3 decades, I had been performing receptiveness while my actual internal posture was defensive. Decades of perfectly polite responses that produced almost no behavioral change. Now, if this content is resonating, and I'm sure with many of you it probably is, just like me, the Leadership Table newsletter goes deeper every Monday morning. One element of the place-setting framework, one principle, one play you can actually run that same week. It's on Substack, free to subscribe, and this week's piece on the fork and Feedforward is one worth reading. Link is in the show notes. Now let's talk about what average leaders reject. Now, average leaders are not bad people. They are people who have built defenses against the kind of input they would need to absorb to keep growing. They reject suggestions from people they outrank. The thinking is that person doesn't see what I see, so their input is not relevant. The hierarchy of the org chart quietly becomes the hierarchy of who gets listened to. Suggestions from above get weighted. Suggestions from below get filtered and then eventually tuned out entirely. They reject suggestions that contradict a previous commitment. If a leader has publicly held a position, suggestions that imply the position needs adjustment trigger, that's right, ego protection. The integrity of the previous statement becomes more important than the quality of the new direction. Pride buys time, but it always charges interest later. They reject suggestions that imply gaps. The harder a leader has worked to look like they have it figured out, the harder it becomes to absorb feedback that suggests there's something they have not figured out yet. The very competence that got someone to leadership becomes the obstacle to deepening that leadership. Now let's touch on what great leaders absorb. You see, leaders I've watched continue growing well into their 50s, 60s, and beyond share one common trait. They have removed almost all the friction between someone offering them honest input and that input that actually changing their behavior. They ask repeatedly in real conversations with specificity, what is one thing I could do differently next quarter that would make me even more effective for you? That question costs nothing and gives everything. Most leaders ask it once at the annual review. The leaders who keep growing ask it consistently, and they thank without defending. The discipline here is to receive the suggestion, register it, and respond with thank you without any explanation attached. You see, the explanation is the defense. Even a polite explanation is the defense. And then here's the big part. They follow up. The completion of Feedforward is closing the loop. The leader who asks for a suggestion runs it and reports back what came of it and has built something even more extraordinary. The person who gave the suggestion now has evidence that being honest with this leader is worth the discomfort. They will give honest input again and again, and the leader keeps getting better. That loop, repeated over and over days, weeks, months, years, decades, is what produces the leaders who never stop developing. Now, AI is generally useful at giving leaders feedback on data, performance metrics, sentiment patterns, operational signals. But what AI cannot do is tell a leader the truth about themselves. The truth about a leader is held by the people they impact. AI does not have that vantage point. People do. And only the leaders who have built the discipline of asking those people what they are actually seeing get the benefit of that mirror. The Leadership Table newsletter on Substack every Monday morning. This week's piece on the fork and Feedforward is there waiting for you. Link in the show notes. And Friday's Breaking Bread on LinkedIn has the play from this week worth running before you enter the weekend. That link, of course, is also for you right in the show notes. Next week, we move to the spoon at its second pass. The first pass was about pouring into others without keeping score. The second pass takes the harder question almost no one is asking. who pours into the leader doing the pouring. Subscribe on Apple or Spotify or your favorite podcast network so you don't miss out. Both links are also in the show notes. And if this episode gave you something, please share it with one leader who at this point in their career where the development questions matter more than the performance one. Or leave a review on Apple Podcast. I would be forever grateful. It helps more leaders find the show. Don't forget to run the play this week. And this week's play is around run the feedback you have been quietly resisting. Pick the feedback you've been quietly resisting. Find the person. Ask for that one suggestion. Receive it without defending. Just say thank you. Run it. Report back. This is the fork at its second pass. That is the work. Thanks for listening to A Student of Leadership. I'm Rob Adams, and I'm still learning too. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of A Student of Leadership. Leadership is about who we become and how we help others grow. If you found value in this podcast, share it with a fellow leader and connect with Rob on LinkedIn or leave a review. New episodes drop weekly, so don't forget to subscribe to stay connected. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and leading with intention. Remember, great leaders are made one habit at a time. See you next time on A Student of Leadership.